Greetings and salutations, my great friends. Thank you for making it to part 4 in the series, Become a Hero to Yourself, to your family, to your team, to your friends, by becoming the greatest version of yourself. This one is greatly inspired by 2 books, The Noticer by Andy Andrews and Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom. 2 amazing books, 2 amazing messages. You'll see how it ties in. Recently, I was having a conversation with one of my coaching clients, and he said, I really love what you and your daughter are doing. They've helped me so much, your videos. Please tell me, John, you're never going to run out of content. And I remember I laughed that day and I said, John, as long as I am coaching people and businesses, I'm never going to run out of content. You've never seen it all. Remember that. But I will tell you, this story literally, it might be my favorite. I really legitimately think it could potentially save your life. We're going to start out with a statistic. You're going to see me throwing this statistic out a lot, very repetitive. And that statistic is that 7.5 out of 10 people have experienced loss, trauma, or betrayal in a primary relationship. It greatly explains a lot of what is going on right now. Because what that means is 7.5 out of 10 people have suffered pretty significant wounds, and it drives a lot of what they do. And when you interact with them, you can either help them heal or you can hurt them even worse. The choice is yours. But one of these people became my coaching client. He was a very high-powered executive at a Fortune 500 company. And he came to me under the guise that he wanted to become a more effective executive. He had taken his wounds and just kept driving and going after level after level after level, thinking his wound would go away, which landed him on my doorstep. But fortunately, everyone that I work with, it's very unique, but it follows a pattern. I ask them to answer 4 questions. Who am I? What am I here for? What matters the most and what matters the least? And then we dive in through a series of activities, through my relationship drills, and we identify who they need to become. And through this process, we realized the most important thing in the world, our relationships, they didn't even make his top 6 priorities. And if they aren't in the top 6, it means they aren't a priority at all. So I told him, unless you're willing to properly prioritize your relationships, your life will be filled with hollowness, emptiness, whatever you want to call it. And he figured he had tried lots of other approaches, lots of other business coaches, and he decided he would give it a try. I was very certain this was what he was looking for. So we did some really deep healing work. We really worked on some wounds he had. I use all of these techniques I call relation shift. That's a series of videos that we did, lightly, mind you. And he started to properly prioritize his relationships. He started to develop new relationships. He had an extra pep in his step. I didn't even recognize this guy. His team was performing. It's usually not some business thing that needs fixed anyways. Every problem that exists in the business, it's a people problem. And if it's not a people problem, it was created by a person. So he was starting to see this. We got this guy to a really good place. And he showed up one day at the old office and I gave him 2 books. I said, you got to read The Noticer by Andy Andrews, and you got to read Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom. So he reports back in about a month later. I only asked him to read one chapter of each, but they're such great books. He had read them all. This guy was jacked up. He was fired up. He was loving me. I was loving him. And I asked him that day, I said, hey, man, what's the main thing that you learned from The Noticer? And he goes, oh, man, there's so much, and I still don't know who Jones is. But he goes, I learned all of life's opportunities come from relationships, so have winning ones. Phew, monster, and so true. You've heard me say that in many videos. And I said, all right, what about Morrie? You know, after about spewing about 10 different points, I said, what was your favorite point? And he said, in a wrestling match, love always wins. He repeated it like 5 times. In a wrestling match, love always wins. Well, something amazing was about to happen. The wrestling match of coronavirus was about to begin. Everybody knows what coronavirus did to people's lives, to businesses, etc. Well, his business was one that was greatly affected. And in a body slam type moment, his job was no longer deemed necessary. Had a wife and daughter at home. We did his session that day, and it was very abbreviated. And I asked him to remember what he learned in the books, and I asked him, have you let all of your relationships know what has happened? In a moment of complete vulnerability, he let them all know. Because if you can't let your relationships know what's truly going on, you're losing. Because vulnerability is strength. A few weeks later, he comes back in. He's not devastated. He's more excited than ever. And he said, that question you asked me, have I told my relationships? He said, I was a little scared too, but after the first one, it was amazing. And he said, so many opportunities have opened up, just like Andy wrote about in The Noticer, all because I had made my winning relationships win. There was job opportunities. There was opportunities to join boards. There was people who wanted to start companies with him. I mean, he had so many options, it wasn't even funny because he had winning relationships. But in the end, he decided he wanted to be free. And he didn't want to ever have to answer to anyone ever again. And because he had healed the wound of in his nothingness, realizing everyone still loved him, he knew it was time to do his own thing because we are meant to be free. And he decided to create a company that would be a force for good in the world, where he would teach people some of the lessons he learned in those 2 books, primarily in a wrestling match, Love Always Wins, and to have winning relationships. So fast forward a couple months, it's amazing what this guy has done. He's already got 40 plus clients. He never has to leave his home, so he even has better relationships with his wife and child. But more importantly, he's free. But the lesson I want to leave you with today, if you want to become a hero, you've got to have winning relationships. If you're caught in a wrestling match, you have to learn that love always wins. In the previous video, you heard about my ABC reflection. And I want to share a few more questions for you to reflect upon so that you can become a hero. The first one is, if your wife or your spouse could change one thing about you, what would it be? Now, I advocate you living your life independent of the good opinion for others, but if there is some truth to the response, make a transition so that you can have winning relationships. If you're working within an organization, what's one thing your team would change about you if they could? If there's truth to it, don't be so attached to who you are. Become attached to who you could become. And then thirdly, if you do have children, what's one thing they would change about you if they could? One life to live. Don't die with the music left inside of you. You are worthy of becoming free. And remember, to be a hero in a wrestling match, love always wins. And that all of life's opportunities come from relationships. So be the hero that you are. God bless you all. See you next week.
In a wrestling match, love always wins. We love and appreciate each and every one of you so much. Please help us spread the word of our channel by hitting like and subscribe.